Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, my dear students. I just before 5 minutes I recorded, this lecture which I'm going to redeliver, but unfortunately there was something wrong in the file, and believe me, that was a 20 minutes lecture, and that took me a greater effort. But unfortunately, my sound was not coming, and I have to read it, and it's a very, very, difficult process in order to give lecture. But still, after recording this, I have to just upload it, on YouTube, which is again a very complicated process. Anyhow, I just this is the second part actually of the lecture. I have shared with you people, the copy of this thesis, which focuses basically there. The place of literature and language teaching and learning, which has been differently viewed actually across curriculum by in different parts of the world, right? So this is very, very important to understand actually the true nature of what literature is in its function in different settings. We have to look at these things. We have to understand what literature is. Though literature is traditionally been defined actually the study of life and the critical study of life, you see, that is of regarding humans. Or some people define literature to be a picture to or list to of actual life, right? So, but anyhow, here I'm going to define actually this literature in the context of this particular document here. There are different definitions which are given here. The use of literature and language teaching and learning, literature and language teaching ELT, and the place of literature in school curriculum, approaches used to teach literature and language classroom, strategy used to read literary text, and the historical development of literature. But here in the special context of the Malaysia, but I would try to be focused actually as far as the contents of your syllabus are concerned. Okay. Defining literature obviously is in social sciences and humanities. You cannot define concretely anything there. You can have various definitions of a certain thing. Like, for example, similarly, literature could be viewed and defined in several different ways. However, it also depends on different factors such as the function of literature and how it is used. Let me just give me an example. Like, for example, a person who is exposed to life in a suburban and a rural setup, his way of looking at things is different than a person who is living in an urban setup. So both people, they define and look at something differently. So similar is the case with literature. So you find here literature is a subject, right? So literature, when defined, is a subject of study. So it means right. It means an activity. Here you see, it means an activity that involves and uses language. So, for example, here, what does this first definition means? That when you define literature as a subject of study, so it means that this is a kind of an activity which involves its users, you see, to make use of language. And Sullivan, you hear, this is the reference, okay, of the person. Some Malaysians and writers like Nku, they started it. It is also referred to as a big L. What does they mean by big L? That which focuses the big L? They mean that focuses on the literariness of a text. That how much a text is literary. It is an example of language in use and context of language use. Literature is seen as a medium. You must focus on the wording here. Literature is seen as the medium in which students' appreciation of different system language organizations can be developed. Studying literature on the whole is not a reaction, but rather it is an interaction between the reader and the... So, in a nutshell and a briefest way, it means it connects the reader and the writer. You see, it brings a kind of connection between the two. I mean, the reader and its, writer. So here, they think like this. All right. As a Talif, he is another scholar. That says that the study of literature, it has been viewed and looked differently, and it has been considered to be something complex and unattainable. Which obviously, if this is complex and unattainable, so it means that we have to just make this more the sense of literature more clearer to the student, in order to make it more accessible to the student in view of its growing interest in the use of literature and language classroom. Right. Since the explanation on its being a subject continues, Widdowson, he is one of the famous scholar. He says, actually, he says that literature is its principal aim. What is that principal aim? Remember, the principal aim of literature is the development of capacity. What is that capacity for? For individual response to language use. Means it develops the capacity in individual to respond to language. For example, if a person is taught literature, so it makes the teaching of literature makes him use language properly. So here it means that students who are supposed to have already developed awareness to literary discourse can convey unique personal messages. It means, my dear student, it means that if the students understands literature well, let's say, for example, if a poet, if a writer, if a novelist is understood properly well by the students, so it simply means that that student will be comparatively better in conveying some personal unique messages to others. Right? Hope that you are getting it. So my dear, so far the literary study are concerned, students, they obviously to be acquainted with the nature of literary discourse. Discourse basically means language, so it may be written, it may be spoken, right? And therefore, studying literature in a very primary and essential sense. So, in other words, you can find that you are supposed to be focusing on literature is a discourse which can have an important contribution to language study and learning. So, literature is a discourse enables you to have an important contribution to language and learning. The more you are expert actually in literature, the more you are expert in language, so that can help you develop better language and learning. So grip on literature is directly linked actually to language study and language learning. Right. So what we understand here, that it can help students to appreciate deeper the nature of literature is literature. So such actually approach of understanding literature is a discourse helps greatly students to understand literature. The major aim of literature learning has been described here. The major principal aim of literature learning is defined as what? Promotion of an aesthetic text approach and text reception. What does the major learning aim of a literature is? That it promotes the aesthetic text approach and text reception. Like, I mean, you have to take the text of any kind, right? Aesthetically. Aesthetically means that you must have some beauty in the given text. And if this approach of looking at some beauty in the text given, and that would be superb approach to understand literature. So to create or to get, this aim fulfilled, so the teacher, they need to create interest in literature, in a literary text. So the teacher then are supposed, they are supposed, here I'm looking at this point, they are supposed to do what? They are supposed to create interest and that piece of literature, and that literature for the student, that the student must, and they should take interest actually in that piece of literature, right? Or in a literary text. And another function they are supposed to play is that they are to sorry for interruption, the brother came and that's why I just asked him to say. And to facilitate entry into literary text, the student, the teacher, they must try to facilitate the students to understand the literary text, to just go through the text and try to look for something which really creates some aesthetic interest in there. And another thing, to safeguard involvement in literary text, to safeguard involvement in literary text, or to safeguard the interest of literary text. All right. So this is going to be like this, are to encourage self-critical attitude. You have to critically look at that particular text, and that must create, a very encouraging attitude there. And to sensitize students to the language of literature. And the students, they need to be sensitized. They must be made sensible, to the use of literature. This is actually one scholar, Delaunay. Delaunay, he talks of such, things regarding according to this Lenga, look at the teaching of literature is often considered a way to indoctrinate. Look, I'm actually quoting what Lenga says, right? So you have to look this particular part very carefully. According to Langer, the teaching of literature is often considered a way to indoctrinate. Indoctrinate means to inculcate, to put the ideas into the mind of students, and to indoctrinate students into the cultural knowledge, good taste, and high culture of society. Like the functions of literature, it has to be done within the context of that cultural knowledge that everybody has, and a good taste, it has to be developed, and a high culture of society, high morals and high values of society. She says that across years, scholars have made distinctions between literary and scientific thought, and have suggested that together they form the multiple sources of reasons we can draw upon when considering. So it simply means that the cultural knowledge, good taste, and high culture of society, it has to be inculcated, and it has to be given to the students. Okay. I think up to here it's enough, but still okay. Let me go. Language in literature and language teaching. Basically, if you look your topics, especially in consonance with your syllabus, so mostly our topic is that. Using literature to teach language is known as small L, according to Gona Kumara Subramanian, Shahiza Ismail Hamadan, and Ku. Because through literature, it emphasizes the use of literature, okay, to promote language learning. So small L they have used actually for what? For the use of literature to teach language. All right. And they say that it requires a three-way interaction between the teacher, the students and the text selected. So a kind of triangle, triangle of teacher, students and text is developed. So such activities actually based on text, which can be adapted, which can be adopted to suit student level of proficiency. So to teach language, Brumfitt and Carter, these are two other scholars, asserted that literary text not only grips readers' imagination more strongly, but they can also be promoted for the examination of language at work. If a reader understands a text, his interest is maintained over there, so his language would be automatically be examined at work. And some other people, they have also talked about such texts that they are actually such grip of literary piece, really makes it predominantly valuable for developing reading skill in the student, and it could be exploited for the purpose such as explaining grammar, teaching, indicating various types of language use. So if a piece of literature is discussed, you see, in a class, so it really exploits and examines and demonstrates, you see, the grip of what, the grip of language, and it demonstrates students for certain skill they have. Furthermore, you see that such opportunities are given to students in the classroom, and which discuss some other possibilities and test out the limits of possibility by using complete literature text, right? So these writers and these people, they have actually doing a lot of things there, and Fakhrul Alam said that literature will increase. I'm just underlying this for you people to understand that a literature will increase our language skill. Our language skill means that 4 or 5 language skill, because literature will extend linguistic knowledge by giving evidence of extensive and subtle vocabulary use in complex and exact syntax. What does this particular part here means? It means that when you are exposed to a certain piece of literature, for example, let me give from literature, like Charles, the person who is very famous for his personal essays, Charles Lamb. All right, Charles Lamb is very famous for his personal style of actually essays, and believe me, when you just begin to read Charles Lamb's essays, the vocabulary that he is made use of actually in his essays, obviously it will extend your linguistic knowledge by giving of extensive and subtle means hard to understand, vocabulary, usage, and complex and exact syntax. The way he is structured, his sentences, and the way actually he is made use of vocabulary, believe me, that would certainly extend your knowledge, and it would certainly will improve your linguistic competence. So that's a piece of literature expose student to such things. Like, we can say that literature can be used to what? To teach language through interesting activities. All right, literature can be used, remember, through what? To teach language through interesting activities. For example, what? Like brainstorming. All right, you give actually the students time to brainstorm your branding. Role playing, the students can be given different role plays there. And word association, you can ask them to associate different words with different words. Situational scenes can be created through the use of literature, and different situations can be created, and even prediction. So in this case, teachers of literature, they should be able to polish up the linguistic skills and language confidence of their students. For example, if you give so much diverse situations to your student, so believe me, it would directly, develop the linguistic skills of their student. So, my dear student, by bringing literature to language classrooms, just look at this. it will give what? It will give students opportunities to express their opinions about general subjects, to involve in conflicts and act out direct responses, to deduce the meaning of words when used in different contexts. Deduce meaning that you have to infer, you have to take meanings out of that particular text. You look at that, and then it involves different students, there, and they come up with certain meanings, okay, and which are when used in different contexts. So to develop the understanding of abstract or unfamiliar concept, and to speculate about common or exceptional issues that serve to improve both linguistic and literary competence of students. So this person actually has said, however, important teaching points to be made clear. All right. The foremost one is, number one, to reinforce the importance of studying literature in regular conjunction with other discourse types. A good teacher of literature, he has to, right from day one. We teacher are to be blamed actually for what? For not making it clear to the students of literature that after doing literature, what are the career opportunities that wait for them once they go through the literature. So, they cannot defend after doing literature there. So it means to say that, it's important, it has to be highlighted. All right. This can serve to assist students in identifying and understanding the operation of language for different communicative functions and sensitizing them to what Buddhism term is conventional schemata of ordinary discourses. Schemata means the background knowledge, in fact. The knowledge that we have, the shared knowledge we have, you see here, that is termed schemata, which is conventionally shared, right? And this is, you can find, you must have gone through, Ferdinand de Saussure. He talks about, language in that perspective, all right? So, in itself, it has to develop actually that language learning there. Thus, we can say that language learning through literature, it improves students' acquisition of particular language skill, such as inferring meanings from clues in the text. For example, you take some clues from the text, which definitely, develops your linguistics and your language skills. And reading between lines, sometimes, at deeper level, you are supposed to to look at the text, and you are coming with read between the line means that you have to understand the deepest meaning. And then copying with figurative and ambiguous language. Then you have are made actually, the student of literature, they are made to understand the figurative means language, indirect language, and the ambiguous languages. For example, sometimes even the language is being made ambiguous in order to make students participate more openly there, which certainly leads to the development of the language there. And thus we can say the language of literature requires hard work on the part of student whose task is to recontextualize look at the term, to recontextualize the textual basis of literary text. For example, if a text is written in Pakistan with a given particular context, but this text, it works, literature works beyond borders, and it is gone there. So then the reader and the student, they have to recontextualize. They have to look that text in their own context. You understand? So teachers of literature and language classroom, therefore, need to guide the student whenever necessary. So Delaunay, he is a famous writer. He talks about it, that this is the work of teacher. They have to make it. They have to guide actually their students. Whenever necessary about it. So I think just this is enough for today, and hope that we will be, inshallah, we will continue doing something there in next in the course. But I think online teaching is very difficult indeed. Believe me, it takes and saps out of our energy. Now you see believe me, just by God, I recorded this lecture before that, but the machine failed. To record it, and my voice was not coming and believe me, my mood was off indeed, but still, I think this is my job, and I'll try my best to deliver the best to you people there. So thank you very much, and hope stay tuned and take care of yourself and your family. So nice of you, so nice of you.